Now, if you're watching this on Team Replay, make sure you hit hashtag Team Replay down in the comments so I know. But why don't you do one thing better and join the fans or the super fans? And you can join in with us live for these types of videos. So what I'd like for you to do, if you want to do that, is go to my main channel page, and right where it says subscribe, right next to it, it says join. Click that and become a fan or a super fan for just a couple bucks a month, where you can get Monday affirmations. And on Wednesdays, we do a spirit class about mediumship and psychic development. It's a lot of fun, and I think you should be here. As you come in, everybody tell me where you're from and how's the weather. I'm in New Jersey, and it is stormy out there, which I have a feeling most of the Northeast is like that. Lori Andrews, hello, welcome in. Sylvia G, what's up? Nice to see you there. Welcome in. Wanty's World is in the house. Nice to see you there. Come on in. If you are a new person to our fans and super fans only, nice to see you there. Thanks for being here with us. Come on in and let me get down to business here in a couple minutes. Hey, it rained in Northern California. Nice. I hope that's good for you guys. Jenny from the building, what's up? Canada, cold but beautiful. Hey, Canada, we love you. Hi, Scotty. Monroe, Washington. Hi, Yvette Fish. Nice to see you there. Welcome, welcome. So today's going to be a little bit of a hodgepodge of a class. There's a lot of things going on and swirling around in my brain about different things that I want to talk about and teach to you. And I think that when we get a couple more folks in here, I think we'll take some questions and hope that guide the class, because I'm a little bit all over. I want to make sure everybody's keeping up with us. And if you are new and you haven't watched this before, make sure you go back through my previous classes like this and watch them. They all can be watched independent of each other. You don't need one to learn the next. And I think that's the way mediumship should be, or psychic development. It really is a wonderful thing to be able to just jump in wherever you're comfortable and get started, okay? Megan, what's up? Nice to see you there. Lori Andrews says, I've talked to my sister. She's going to become a super fan. Oh, thanks so much for talking to her about that. I appreciate it. It's very nice. Teresa says, we had a lot of rain lately, and yes, we need it. Good. We definitely need it here as well. Verna Lisa, what's up? Hi, Scotty. Cold and rainy in Ontario. Okay, yeah, same here in New Jersey. Cold and rainy. Actually, it's not that cold out. It's 50 degrees, but it's very rainy. A giant tree limb came down in my yard, which now when it's nice, I'm going to have to clean it up. Yeah, being a homeowner, man, it's a blessing and a curse altogether. Wanty, if you're still watching, if you wouldn't mind just hitting the Discord and letting them know we're in here. I know that we do this every week at 9, and people get a little impatient. I was here at 9:06. I was creating the thumbnail and the description for the video, and it took me a minute because YouTube is funny. I'll get like sometimes almost all the way through ready to post and go live, and it won't let me do it, so I have to delete it and restart. So sometimes it takes me a couple minutes, which is a pain in the neck. Thanks, Wanty. I appreciate you, buddy. Diane, what's up? Nice to see you there. So we'll start with you guys that are here, you guys and gals that are here. In the last couple of weeks of doing this, I hope that you're getting something out of this class. Last night, if you were here, we did a big open discussion on remote viewing. It was a lot less of a discussion and more of me just talking about my experiences in the world of remote viewing and reframing some ideas that we think about with mediumship and psychic development and psychic abilities in the idea of remote viewing, which I think is really cool. But we're going to tonight keep it in psychic and mediumship mode, okay? So if that's what you're here for, excellent. Welcome. Hi, Amy TB Art. What's up? How are you? Amy, I was using that big tumbler you gave me today. I love that thing. I fill it to the brim with coffee, a little splash of oat milk, and some Splenda, and baby, I'm ready to go. So thanks for that. If anybody's looking for some custom, awesome stuff, Amy TB Art makes a lot of really great things. So make sure you follow her. And if you haven't yet on our Discord, you should make sure you follow her there as well. Hi, Dawn. Nice to see you there. Therese says, hi, Amy. Yeah, look at that. All of our friends are joining in. Okay, so again, if you're watching on the replay, welcome in. Nice to see you there. And if you're watching live, what's up? Let's start. I've had so many things swirling around in my brain lately. It's a lot. There's a lot going on. Thank you, Wanty. I appreciate you. So let's see. Let's talk about what first off, who here has been keeping a journal? Who here has been writing down their experiences? And if you have been keeping a journal, has anything surprised you recently? So has there been anything that you wrote down in your journal or your notebook and you were like, I think X, Y, and Z, and I hope that I can be validated that by that later on. And has it happened? Hi, finally catching alive again. Hi, Denise. Nice to see you there. Welcome in. Yep, we go live, just so you know, on Mondays at 7 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And then on Wednesdays, guaranteed for my fans and super fans, almost always guaranteed, sorry, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. And this is the time when we reflect, we do our mediumship and psychic development, and we work on that stuff. So if you've been keeping a notebook or a journal, has it been going well? And is there anything that any kind of questions that you have for me that you'd like to know about? One of the things that I'll start with in this is, folks, one of the most asked questions, and I'll tackle it as much as I can every time. Hi, Shelly. Hi, Angela. Is how do you know that you're not making it up? And again, if you haven't watched the notebook video, I think it was one of the first ones in this series. I say the difference between knowing something isn't made up or make-believe and it's real and it's something tangible is writing it down. So if you're new to this and you're like, boy, I really like to get better at doing some aspect of what Scott does. Remember, we're all different. This is really important to remember too. We're all different. There's nobody in the world that has the same skill set. We might be able to do similar things, but we do them differently and we experience them differently. So I explain it to you from my point of view in the best way that I can explain it, so that you have a good way of understanding what I'm talking about. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be the way that you experience or the way that you're going to get super better at it. But what I want you to do is collectively taking the information that I'm giving you, try to understand it, and then also with that, try to make it your own and make it work for you. When I was growing up, and I had many jobs, one boss in particular said something like that to me. And, his name was Curtis. He was a really nice guy. He was like, the same thing I just said. What works for me, but you should lay some groundwork because I know that it works, but make it your own. And that's what I want to teach you here as well. Make sure that as I am going through this, that you are taking the information, understanding it as best you can, and then using it and utilizing it and making it your own so that you can get better at your own personal abilities. Okay. I'm not good at keeping a journal. So Bev, it's really not, it's not hard. This is what I mean by keeping a journal. It could be scribbles as long as you can read them. So much like my readings are always just these writings. They're not coherent looking out. There's lines, there's dashes, there's circles. There's all kinds of stuff going on in here. But what we don't want to be like, dear diary, today, I was thinking of, just write like, today I thought about my Aunt Mary. I haven't thought about her in a year. And, maybe in like 3 days, Aunt Mary spontaneously is going to call you. It's just a way for you to keep track of the random thoughts that you have that actually are just psychic insight, and to teach yourself to be confident in the fact that the stuff that you're picking up during the day or randomly daydreaming about or thinking about are actually bits and pieces of psychic information just coming to you. And the best way to understand that is happening is to write a journal, because if you're like, man, I thought about Aunt Mary 3 days ago and here she is calling me. The difference between telling somebody that or even having confidence for yourself that it was psychic is going back and seeing that you actually wrote, I thought about Aunt Mary today. I haven't thought about her in a year. And then, then underneath it on, Friday, you write, she called today. So that way it helps build confidence in you that you know that you are actually doing this. Okay. So it's really like that. Okay. Easy peasy. What's up? Hey, Scotty, Texas in the house, late but on time. Listen, as long as you got here, you're on time. Chicken scratch? Yes, chicken scratch. I keep my notes on my phone. Yep, that's a great way to do it for sure. Our mods are awesome, aren't they? So that's that. So that's how we understand that the things that are coming through are not make-believe. In the best way for us, and maybe we should set up some sort of psychic workshop here. Maybe one Wednesday we don't go live on YouTube. Maybe one of these Wednesdays I send out a Zoom link for all of you and we get down into the nitty-gritty of it that way and do a psychic workshop with each other. So that way you can see in real time how accurate you guys and gals actually are with these readings. So when you are developing, I've said this a lot, and it takes some bravery. You have to pick up your bravery sword and be brave and know that you're going to need to be brave in order to not be afraid of getting things wrong, because we're gonna get things wrong. Nobody's 100% accurate in any of this. I don't want to say it's impossible, but it is very unlikely that you would be 100% accurate in everything you said during a psychic reading or a mediumship reading. So don't worry about it. But even 10% is someplace to start. Even if you got one thing out of 10 right, but it was super accurate, like, imagine you went through a list of things and you were sitting with a close and trusted friend who was not judging you and was trying to help you. And, you're like, okay, I'm gonna see if I can connect with somebody that is deceased that belongs to you. And you come up with a crazy name like Bartholomew, right? Like, that's like a really random name, Bart, but you come up with the whole thing, Bartholomew, right? And the other things that you get are just like, they don't match. They're not important. But you got the name, and the person that you're doing the reading for is like, yeah, that's a deceased relative of mine for sure. I know who that is. But the rest of it doesn't come through. So the next time you sit down with this person, you can say, okay, I'm going to specifically try to tune into Bartholomew or Bart and see if I can get any more information from that person, if they can step forward and just give me more information. And that little bit might be just all you need for the next reading with that person, for that spirit to step through and give you really good information on what will be a bigger part of the reading, if that makes sense. Okay. I feel like people will think I'm nuts. Well, luckily you're here with us, Lori, and that's why we will help set up like a little psychic workshop virtually. And we don't think you're nuts. I don't think you're nuts. I don't think, listen, I've been very much rediving back into a lot of information and learning myself, because if I'm going to be effective at teaching you and helping you along in your journey, I constantly have to be learning and evolving as well. It's very important. So, one of the things that I have to say to all of you, and this is important, is we're not crazy. We all, for probably thousands of years prior to right now, human beings most likely were very much more telepathic with each other than they are now. Imagine going back thousands of years, hundreds of thousands of years, when human beings were hunters and gatherers, right? And we had to really band together to get food and survive and get through winters and harsh summers and climates and locations, right? But we didn't have so much spoken word as we do now. We have hundreds of thousands of words to communicate with each other to get our point across about things. Imagine couple 100,000 years ago if our small group or tribe was together and we didn't really have spoken words, but we could look at each other and have an understanding. So let's use that for a second. Do you have, this isn't so much psychic as it is just being familiar with somebody. Do you have a loved one in your life that you can just like give a look? Or like, I have coworkers that I work with at the department, and we've worked with each other for a very long time, and we can look at each other and the message is very clear from me to them and them to me as to what we want to happen next in order to complete the job or the mission or whatever is happening, the call, right? So, or if something funny happens, or we think is like kind of ridiculous or silly, we'll give each other a different kind of look, right? So imagine if I am in a dark room with a coworker like that, and we're trying to assess a situation that we can't really speak because of constrictions in the environment. I know that that person and myself are able to really communicate at a deeper level. So I just think about that for a second. So for a long time, human beings didn't have to speak as much as we do now to communicate. So there had to be something else. And I think that a lot of that is a part of our nervous system. It is something is built inside of us. Now, I really had a very deep thought about this morning because I wanted to talk about it. It has to do with mediumship and psychic abilities and trauma, but we're not trauma bonding. That's not the point of this. Trauma or um, beyond fight or flight. So, trauma is something, and we talked a little bit about this last night in the other conversation, but tonight we're going to apply it to mediumship and psychic development. Okay. So, when we are going through hard times, we can learn how to disassociate, meaning what I like to call the ADHD stare, or the stare my son gives me when I'm yelling at him because he's not doing what I'm asking. This one, right? Lights are on, nobody's home, but you're just disassociating. You're taking your consciousness and pushing it back so that your body can just be present, but you don't really have to retain any of the information or the things that are happening, right? So, what we want to do is recognize that as a state, and it can happen when you go into shock, or if you are going beyond that fight or flight, feeling like you're not going to be scared any you're beyond scared, you're not scared anymore. You've realized there's nothing to be afraid of, even though it's a scary situation, and because of that you also don't need to flee or run. So fight or flight, for all of you who may not know, is just when a human being gets into a very intense situation where they are either going to fight their way out or run to avoid the issue so they can stay alive or avoid harm, right? Um, I've often felt that those things are very intertwined with our abilities as well as ADHD, right? So, what we want to do is, and right, that's another thing, boss lady, you're right on, and that's something we'll talk about with this. So we're not trying to trauma bond, which means that I'm not trying to share my stuff that may help form this person that I am, from the dark part, but to tell you about the light that's on the other side of it, because we've all been through bad stuff. Mine isn't any worse than yours, and so on and so forth. Human beings live hard lives sometimes, and some harder than others, and that's good to recognize and to understand that we share that, but it's not good to dwell on it. Okay, we want to dwell on the positive side, on the other side of it. So when we want to talk about these things, we want to talk about the things that make us good at this. So Michelle, I'm sorry, Boss Lady says, I'm very hyper vigilant due to trauma, and I've learned to listen to my body and feelings, stay quiet, and soak it all in, even with people. So that is literally opening up that psychic connection to those people around you. You have become hyper vigilant, and even as I'm talking with you, I feel my own heart chakra sort of opening up a little bit, and I can understand here in the pit of my stomach that that is also opening, and it is fueling the rest of my ability to tune in with you and the folks that are like us, right? So when we are not in a fight or flight situation, but we recognize what that means, because we've been in trauma situations before, it seems that those of us that are able to tap into that pretty quickly and stay calm and not experience the anxiety that come along with it are really able to tune in with the other side and the person in front of us. So, oftentimes, when folks talk to us about, or talk to me about how psychic readings work, how aura readings work, how mediumship works, they think that there's some sort of magic trick to it. They think that we are um, looking at your face and we're looking for gestures or motions or words to come out of your mouth. As a matter of fact, that is very untrue for what we're talking about. Simply being able to put yourself into that meditative state, which is that state of disassociation, while still being aware of what's happening. So, when you go into that disassociative state and you become lights are on, nobody's home, you still have that inner voice processing. You're just not paying attention to what's here. And even as I'm doing this to you right now, you can definitely tell that I'm not looking at you and I'm looking beyond you. But it's not about my physical sight. It is literally about detuning all of this and tuning into what's in here. And oftentimes, even all of this with my eyes open and disassociated is too much of a distraction. So I close my eyes. A lot of times when I do readings for people one on one, I have to let them know I'm not being rude and I'm interested in you. However, I don't need to see you. I need to close my eyes and see what I'm experiencing here in order to understand full messages and bring them forward to you. Okay. So, um, right, Lori says, due to PTSD, I'm almost always in fight or flight. Right, correct as well, right? But we're not trauma bonding. We're just saying that is, and you don't necessarily have to have ever experienced anything to the level of um, afraid for your life to access this. It's you literally could have just been bored to tears somewhere at school, maybe, because that's where I always did this, and I was really good at this, and I would just do the disassociation and I would go somewhere in my head. Sometimes I would just recall full episodes of television shows that I liked and could literally just rewatch them in my head. It's just something that I unfortunately can do. It's a weird thing, but a lot of us can do stuff like that. Okay. So when we go into this state of mind, it is important for you to be able to still pay attention. And this is where it gets a little bit difficult, but it's comes with practice. You can get better. So when I'm saying that this gets a little difficult, it's okay. Don't be scared. Don't be afraid. It's all right, because this is where writing things down comes in handy. So let's say for when we plan our workshop, maybe 2 weeks from now, because I'll give everybody a chance to be able to be a part of this. So what we want to do is be able to pick the person that we're going to work with, excuse me, and we want to be able to go into that space of the disassociation while we're still paying attention to our inner feelings, dialogue, and visual things that are happening up in our imagination space. These simply are our clairvoyance, clairaudience, and clairessence working together with some of those psychic abilities. And what we want to do is, if you haven't watched this class yet, the psychic flashcards class is very important. So we will start building that deck with each other. Okay. So what happens is we want to be able to close our eyes and say, okay, spirit on the other side, I want to do a reading for Lori. So please, if there's anybody that belongs to Lori, please come forward and do your best to give me. I'm not actually doing a reading. I'm just Lori Andrews is the last person on my screen here. So that way you set an intention. The intention is set. And at that moment, when you close your eyes, what do you see, hear, feel, smell, taste, or experience? That's a big one that people forget. You know what the experience of being on a roller coaster is. You know what the experience of being hugged is. You know what the experience of crying is. You know, you have tons of life experiences. You know, experience of graduating, of getting your license, of having a birthday. All of those things are things that you experience, right? So with that, you need to be able to articulate that or verbalize it so that the person you're doing the reading for knows what you're talking about. By the way, I'm going to take one break here for a second because I don't know if I just stopped getting messages come up on my screen. There is literally no more messages. So if you guys are just being quiet, I don't know, but I'm not seeing any messages come up. So if you guys are typing and I'm not talking to you, it's not because I'm ignoring you. It's just because there's nothing new coming up in my feed. So I guess I'm kind of on my own unless that changes. So what we want to do is in this space, we want to make sure that we are articulating as best we can the experiences that we're having and the things that are coming out of our mouth. So when I am doing a reading for somebody, I sit down, I be quiet, I move myself away, meaning I don't think about my home or my family or my children or my bills or my job, nothing. It all just goes blank. And I say, okay, spirit, fill in the blanks, which is what's up here. And they'll bring that information forward. And the first thing that might happen is I might feel some pain somewhere. And I'll be like, okay, that hurts. My ribs hurt. Why do my ribs hurt? Underneath my ribs is my liver, and as I've got my eyes closed, I feel like I see the shape of what might be a liver, and it's full of black spots, which, because by now I've done this a lot, I know is cancer. So when I back up away from that, I can see that this man has passed away from liver cancer. And I can look at him and say, like, hey, could you just show me what you looked like before you got sick? And they'll show me when they were recently healthy. And that is how I build a reading, which is really unique to the way that I do it. You can build a reading any way that you want, which is important to remember. What I would say is whatever first is coming to you the strongest is what you should just immediately say. No matter what it is. If you close your eyes and all of a sudden you see a street sign and it says Scott on it, and you open your eyes and you're like, look, I don't know what to make of this, but I saw a street sign named Scott. You might be talking to somebody and they might say, well, I grew up on Scott Drive. Oh, okay, good. So I don't know what that has to do with anything, but I'm at least tuned into you, right? And then the next thing they might say is, okay, there's a male coming forward and he's standing next to you in a way that feels very brotherly. And he's holding that sign now and laughing. And the person might say, well, it's funny because my brother stole that sign like 3 times. He thought it was funny. So now you've made that connection between the the person who's deceased. You've brought them something very interesting that you wouldn't know from their life or their brother's life, and given it some credence by bringing it forward in evidentiary mediumship style. Okay, and you might say, well, I saw that liver that was hurt. Does that make sense with your brother? And yeah, he was actually a really bad alcoholic, and unfortunately, he ended up passing away from liver failure, not cancer. So you're right in there. Again, the accuracy sometimes is really, really good, and sometimes it's pretty spot on, but it's not 100% accurate because of the way that we interpret things. Okay, so what is important to do is know that you have just gotten like 80% of what came out of your mouth was correct, like 80 to 90%, and build confidence on that, and knowing that when you close your eyes, that information is coming to you, and nobody thinks you're weird for doing it or strange or anything like that. It's just simply something that we are built to be able to do, despite what people who don't believe in this stuff say. If they would open themselves up a little bit, they would be able to do these things too. As a matter of fact, they probably do them and just don't realize that's what they are. They interpret it some other way, which is fine. That's their experience. We just are aware that the experience is happening and we're trying to control it, right? So that's what this is about. So I can't ask you guys if you're tracking because, again, there are no new comments coming up. I'm even trying to scroll down and up, and literally nothing is happening. So let's see. I'll do start a Q&A. I will ask the question. You guys with me? So if you're watching this on Team Replay, I'm just doing a live poll because, or a live Q&A, because my comments aren't working. So hopefully that will do something for you guys. So anyways, so that is how we build it. So in your lifetime, when you are experiencing things, you'll understand when you're sitting to do a reading, whether it's mediumship or psychic, that the information coming to you is the experience of other people's, but they're picking on your cards, which is another really big reason why you have to be very mentally ready to do this type of work. So if you are not, if you, I don't want to put anybody in a spot where I'm telling them they can't do something, but it would be responsible of you to understand your own mental health and state before you sit down and do any of this stuff. You want to make sure that you are able to handle some of the very traumatic things that sometimes us as mediums have to deal with. I've dealt, and this is so sad, I've dealt with many deceased children, murder victims, people who tragically passed away. Not everybody just makes it to 90, as you all know, and just like passes away in their sleep. It just doesn't work that way, unfortunately. So you have to be able to deal with those things and understand that they don't belong to you. Although your feelings were picked and certain experiences in your life were touched on in order to bring that information forward, it's not for you to hold on to. It's not your trauma. It was just the spirit's way of touching on those things in order for you to say them, kind of like buttons inside. If you've ever watched that movie Inside Out, or right, the little girl has all the emotions inside of her head, and they have to work the control panel, and they hit buttons, and in the back there's like a vault of memories. Imagine spirits kind of like, as a matter of fact, I'm glad I thought of that. I'm going to have to make a video about that. So imagine that those little animated characters are just spirit, and they're going into your vault of memories and emotions and touching them so that you recall them and apply them to the reading as it's happening. And all you have to do is be brave. And sometimes they will pick on experiences that you may not necessarily have had, but have witnessed other people have and had deep feelings about it, which is again where we go back to that building block of being an empath. Most human beings are empaths. We are sensitive to other people's emotional state and physical state and mental and spiritual state, right? And we just sort of have like a little feel for it. So when somebody in your family comes to you, or a coworker or somebody outside that you're acquainted with, and they walk in the room, and you just know if they're in a good or bad mood, or happy, sad, excited, and they haven't said anything to you yet, you can just pick it up from them. So that's again going back again, way back to our ability, I think, is when we were just developing as human beings, our psychic tie to each other. Um, so that is that part. So we've talked about keeping your journal, making sure that you are writing down the things that you are experiencing so that when they happen, you can say, "Oh, I knew that was going to happen." We talked about getting into and beyond the fight or flight response, which seems to be where the psychic abilities lay. And then we talked about um, just how to understand why spirit is picking out the emotions and memories they are from your own personal life in order to get the message across. I think we've got all of that. And being brave, whatever, no matter what ridiculous thing comes out of your mouth, um, you absolutely I've learned the more ridiculous something is that you have to say, probably the more spot on it really is. Right down to nicknames, and I'll share a personal experience. So the first time that I ever stepped out publicly to do a reading, for the very first, and I'll never forget this, for the very first woman that sat down in front of me and just looked me dead in the eyes. I didn't know her. She's a complete stranger. I wasn't in practice mode. I was doing this for a fundraiser for a fire company, and this lady said, "Okay, go." And I was getting points right. I was getting points right. But the coolest thing that happened was I said, I want to talk about, I feel like I should say the name Spoofy or something similar. And she said, oh, oh, that's my cat. Yeah, that was the cat's name, Spoofy. And I was like, are you kidding? And she was like, no, that's absolutely right. That's actually why I'm here. I wanted to make sure my cat was okay. So I think I had brought through her sister who passed and her mother, which she was happy about, but she wanted to hear from the cat, and she was really happy that the name came through because it helped her find some peace knowing that the cat was probably okay. But to me, that sounded ridiculous to say, but I had learned from a whole year of doing this, just grinding through it, that most of the time anything that was more silly would provide a better reading. Believe it or not, or the more outrageous it was, the better the information was. I don't know why that is, and if you'll experience it a little bit differently, but it's certainly one of those things that I think I always tell people when I teach this stuff. Just let it fly. Don't worry about being upset if you're wrong or it's not correct or whatever, because it'll happen. You'll nail it, and you'll be like, yes, I'm so happy I got it. So let's see. Let's touch on this next thing. So I know a lot of you have trouble meditating, right? The big M word, you guys get afraid of it, you're scared, I can't do it, my brain doesn't shut up. Well, I'm going to direct you to one of my favorite things called binaural tones. These are just special tones that play through a headphone, through your headphones, and that you can sit and relax and listen to, and it helps your brain get into a super meditative state where you are both awake and asleep, and you are able to understand the information that your brain is processing, and recall it in order to write it down or record it on a digital listening device or a camera. Okay. Binaural tones are really neat. So many of I can't see you guys raise your hands or see you say me, but I see that you're still watching, so we're good. Um, Basically, who here loves music that is really it's mixed, and when you're listening to it with headphones or in a good car with a good system, that it sounds like the sounds are like kind of moving all around you and oscillating. So what that does is, I think, I don't know that this is proven or if it's hypothetical, but this is what it's supposed to do. Obviously our brain is split in the middle. There's a left and a right hemisphere. Many years ago, scientists believed that they worked independently of each other, left brain, right brain, right. I think more recently they are not thinking so much that way. But what happens is with these tones is they are specifically tuned to a certain hertz, gigahertz tone, and each one of those tones is supposed to affect your brain a little bit differently. And what it does is it oscillates the sound between the two sides of your head. And as that's happening, as your brain is processing that information, it starts to fire neurons in directions that they normally don't work in. So you start to form bridges of neurons touching each other that don't normally connect. What does that sound like, might you ask? Well, that sounds like what ADHD is. So if you already have ADD or ADHD, or maybe on a spectrum of autism, you may also already make a lot of those connections quickly, or more quickly than other people. So what these tones do is help mimic that, and they help your brain open up. Now, I'm going to warn you, when you find the right tone, you are going to feel like you're being lifted up off of whatever you're sitting on or laying in. It is a wonderful and magical experience that, um, every time I have it, it is amazing. It literally feels like you're going to pop out of your body. And some of you might, based on some of the conversation that we had last night about remote viewing. So, why do we do this? So, what happens is when the point of the meditation is to be calm and still and take all of your other problems and move them away. When we sit and listen to the binaural tones, it helps fire all of those neurons and create new pathways. When this is happening, your body is very relaxed and your brain is actually stimulated. So it's like dreaming while your body is awake. That information that is presented to you in that time when your eyes are closed, what you hear, see, smell, taste, and experience are all parts of information that may be coming to you as a part of a reading, your higher self, or perhaps from somewhere else in the world. So it all depends on your intention. So many times, um, I had done the experiment where I wouldn't do binaural tones and I would do readings and they would be okay. And then I would do binaural tones and the readings would be out of this park. So now I do binaural beats every time I'm going to do a a reading beforehand. Um, it's a really great way to just get yourself into that zone. You learn to breathe and exhale. It's relaxing. And for some of you, it's a good excuse just to get away from the craziness of the house. Okay. Um, Sometimes that's why I do it. Meditation's the best. So, we do this every time because it helps open us up and it lets spirit know that we are getting ready to communicate with them. When your neurons are firing and your brain is really active but your body is still and relaxed, you'd be surprised how much more information you can process and how much more clearly it'll get down onto paper or out through your mouth. With that being said, I will share this piece of wisdom. um, when I am doing one-on-one readings for people, I generally won't eat within 2 hours, of doing the readings. And there were times when I had gone to house parties or psychic parties or whatever, and I'd be the entertainment basically doing all the readings. I'd been there for like 5, 6, 7 hours doing readings and not eating, and it is really the best way to keep a good, clear mind I think, because you're not focusing on digestion or gassiness or discomfort. So everything is very nice and clear. I wish that the comments were working, but they're not. So if who's ever watching this, thank you so much for watching with us. We're not done yet, but I do want to remind that if you were watching on hashtag Team Replay, that you should definitely become a fan or a super fan, because this is just one of many types of classes that we teach here. It's always about mediumship and psych development, but it is always ever changing, and we're always trying to learn and get better. And you can do that live with us, usually with comments right here. Okay. All right. So let's get to this next part. We'll keep it within that zone of doing readings, because I know a lot of people have a lot of fear about it, and I'll try to squash the other part of the fear. So many people are like, okay, Scott, let's just say that I am actually connecting to these people. I'm actually on the other side in the spirit world, or I'm opening myself up to the spirit world. What are the dangers? And oftentimes I think the danger really is our own afraidness, our own being afraid, right? And I talked to you about being outside of the fight or flight mode. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It just means that you're kind of going beyond it. But I have never come across in my days of readings, doing readings with a person, a human being, and I'm not looking at a haunted house or something, but I'm just there for this communication here. I've come across people that were past souls, that were negative, bad people. No judgment, just they were not morally good. They were murderers. They did other really bad things to other people, grifters, and all kinds of things like that. But they didn't want to hurt me or hurt the people that I was talking to. Mostly they come for apologies, to give one, usually. So there's nothing negative that you're going to run into unless you're looking for it. And even whatever that is, I don't know. I've not really had to deal with it on that kind of level. So we just need to understand that part of the phenomenon. There's nothing negative out there looking for you when you're opened up and asking them to come to you. You're literally just looking for the good people that want to connect, or the people who are human spirits that want to come through and chat with you and their loved one. That's it. And never once have I ever been sitting at a table and like all of a sudden like Simon the Demon is like, "Rrr." Sorry, that was much. It's never been anything like that. It's always a very positive communication, even when it's not somebody wonderful who's coming through. Okay, so don't sweat that. It's not something to be worried about. Then the other thing that I'm going to leave it on this, but I'm also going to ask you all to do a little work with this. Okay, I recently was listening to somebody who does this sort of work, and we talk about putting our ego in the back seat all the time. I say it to you fellas and gals out there. I say, you know what? If you're going to sit down and do this, you have to be ready to be wrong. You have to be ready for people to attack you. You have to be ready for those sorts of things. You have to be ready for that sort of thing. And our ego deals a lot with that. And what we have to do is put that ego away. And what is an ego? Ego is just the thing that tells you you're worth being here. You're awesome. I think it tells you to go to the supermarket, eat that food. It's that voice that keeps you moving and positive most of the time. And it's the thing that gets hurt when somebody says you're not good enough or you're bad or you're not great or whatever. You got to be able to put that away. And I heard this gentleman say this. He was talking about the ego as well, and the interviewer was like, "Well, how do you keep your ego from getting in the way of being good at this?" And the guy said he gives his ego a job. I never thought of it like that. I don't do any. I take chloroform and put it over my ego's face, and he goes down for the count for as long as I'm doing the reading. And even when you guys are chatting with me and you're like, "Oh my God, you were doing such a good job. You're so awesome. It's so great." Like, even then I have to tell ego back here to like, shut the heck up. Be quiet, ego. We don't need you. We don't want to talk to you. So you have to learn how to manage that. And then this guy said that he gives his ego a job. Now, I tried to understand what he meant by that. And he was like, sometimes I give it math problems, sometimes I give it something else to think about. And I think for me, that just is that part of when I'm going to start meditating where I compartmentalize and I move my own life to the side. That could be very well my ego being pushed over to make room for the other stuff that's going to come through. Now, your ego isn't going to go away forever. Of course, during the day, um, my ego is the thing that's like, hey, make sure that you're making content and posting because I want to stay happy and feeling good that we're doing this. So that's your ego, and it's okay to have that. But while you're doing the reading in this really special thing that we can do, it's really important to tell that thing to be quiet and just be like, you can't talk right now because I am focused on this. Because your ego will want to get in and manage things, and it'll want to try to tell you that what you're seeing is incorrect, or it's not right, or it's not this, it's that. And that voice has no place in the reading. You're seriously just a blank slate that just lets information come through and you regurgitate it. And that is basically, well, you know what? That's in a nutshell what it is. So I think I covered a lot of stuff. I did not be quiet, and I couldn't take a break because you guys, I can't see your comments. I hope you're all seeing each other's comments. It's been a long day. I had to work last night until this morning. Only got a couple hours of sleep, and I have been running like crazy all day. So I am getting quite tired, and it is about time for me to call it a night. So thank you very much for being here with me. I appreciate you all very, very much. If you have more questions about the things that we talked about and you belong to our Discord, make sure you post them there, and I'll do my best to get back to you sometime tomorrow about them. For those fans and super fans watching right now, we are getting ever closer to the Ohio project coming out. They're in the very last stages of the edit process and are putting the artwork in, and it will be done, and we'll have that out fairly soon. And other than that, I got no other announcements at the moment. So that is it for me. I am getting sleepy like a little baby. Thank you very much for hanging out here with me. I appreciate you. I hope that you have a wonderful night, and I hope that every week you get something out of this, apply it, and come back the next week a better medium or psychic. All right, everybody, I will see you all tomorrow. Good night.